Next, we're going to take a look at the dates, and this is another one where there is a lot to this, and this is going to be a beginner level, so we're going to talk about the ones that you're going to use often. So our employee table happens to have a birth date and a hire date, so we have something to work with using the same table. The hire date, where's the birth date? Both of these fields happens to be a date field. The date field does not include a time. So when we run the query for this, let's put the login ID in here. So here are the logins, their hire dates and their birth dates, and you can see the format that's used, the year, month, and day. So the first function I want to mention is GETDATE, which is basically just today. If you run select GETDATE, it will return to you the day, down to the milliseconds for that day. This is very useful. I use this all the time. You can add and subtract days using this function by default. So I can say I want 30 days from now and do a plus 30, and it will add 30 days to today. And obviously the opposite, we can do the same thing. We can subtract 30 days from today, and it'll go back in time. Whoops, I meant to run that. It goes back to July. Another to consider is the UTC time. Depending on where your database is located physically, what server it's on, you might be using the server's time and date. You might want to standardize with the UTC date when storing records, and SQL does have that. We have the get UTC date. Let's run both these together. So get date first and the get UTC date. You'll see in my case I am -5. Well, with daylight savings, I should say. So the UTC date is 19, but or I should say the UTC time is 19, but my time is actually 15. And it's actually a -5, but because of daylight savings, it modifies it. You can also do the current timestamp, which is just what it sounds. Current, if I spell it right, should be on here. Current timestamp. And you'll notice if you compare these three. The first one is the get date. That's the UTC date. And here's the current timestamp, basically returning the same values. So what can we do with this? The get date can also, because it's technically a date time data type, it can also be casted as just a date. So you can cast it and say, you know what, I don't want a date time data type, I want a date data type. And it'll get rid of the hours, the minutes, and the milliseconds, and it just gives you that year, month, and day. And that date data type is what we have in our hire date and our birth date for this employee table. In many reporting and result sets, your manager or client may not like the numerical reference, so you might actually have to pull out the month name, the day name, and we can actually do that. We have a function called month. When you apply month to the date or date time, it'll pull back the number of the month. So November and December, January, February. We can also pull back just a part of the date, like the year. And then of course you can guess that the day is available too. So now I have the pieces parts, or the components of my date field. If I were to use GETDATE, which is a date time field, so to get this month, I'd apply the month function to the GETDATE function, and that would give me the month number for the current month that I'm running that command. And this applies for all the other ones too: month, year, and day. So these are numerical. We want to convert this to something that someone can actually read. So the month is something we can actually convert. We need to use something called DATENAME. DATENAME will allow us to specify that we want to just see the month name of this date field. And for the next one, let's say we want to do, that's the month, we'll do the weekday for this one, just to be different. Again, this is the DATENAME function we're using. Now we have something that's legible, or a string. And you know what we can do with strings. I have a few other ones, not super useful, but I've used this before. The day of the year. This is the person's birth date, so not super useful, but this is the day of the year 1 through 365. So you can break down what day of an entire year this date references. You can also get, if you wanted to, you could get the day of the year of right now with GETDATE. And the day of the year right now is the 223rd day of the year. I think the last one would be week. Let's go with the higher date on this one. This will give you the number of weeks, so 1 through 52 for the week number. I can't say I've used that, honestly used that for anything, but there are more than just that you've seen here for the date name. But now that you're familiar with the GETDATE, the date time, the month, day, year, and now the date name, you should be able to work with dates and be able to display them in a little more friendly manner. Please leave your comments. Don't forget to like, and don't forget to subscribe. We still have another couple of videos coming out with this series. Thanks.